Hey, this is Toby, and today we will finish our Breakout EA for MetaTrader 5. So this will be the last part of our little series on the Breakout Expert Advisor. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so as I said, this video will be the last part of our Breakout EA series. And if you have not watched the previous videos, I will link them up here so you can go watch them. So we already did the range calculation for the start, end, and close time. We also checked in the last part for a buy breakout and sell breakout. And we also coded the logic to close all positions here at the red line in the evening. Okay, so and in this video, we will add a stop loss, a take profit in percent of the range. We will also add a day of week filter to this EA. And we will add a breakout mode so that we can switch between 2 breakouts per range and only 1 breakout per range. Okay, so let's start coding. Okay, so this is our code so far. And now what we want to do is to add a stop loss and take profit in percent of the range. So if we take a look at this example here, if we enter a stop loss of 100%, the stop loss, if we have a buy breakout here, should be on the other side of the range. So somewhere around here. If we enter, for example, 200% for the stop loss will be here. And the same goes for the take profit. If we enter 100% for the take profit will be here. So this is the same distance as our range. Okay, so let's start with the inputs of the stop loss and take profit. So we just add a input of type integer because it's in percent. So we call it input stop loss, and we predefine this variable with maybe 100, or let's say 150. Okay. So now we also write a comment here. Stop loss in percent of the range. And we do the same for the take profit. So input take profit. We maybe set the take profit to, I don't know, 200. We also change the comment here. Take profit in percent of the range. Okay. So that's it for the inputs, for the stop loss and take profit. Now the next step is to check the inputs of the user, because we want to protect the EA from, for example, stupid inputs like a negative stop loss and so on. So we just write another if statement here in the onInit function. Maybe after we check for the lots, we just copy this, add another if statement, and this time we just write input stop loss. So if the input stop loss is below 0, this should be a error, for of course. And also, let's say if the input stop loss is greater than 1000, because that's maybe a little bit too big of a stop loss. But of course, you can change this number if you want. Okay, now we write the message. Stop loss below 0, or stop loss greater than 1000. Okay, we do the same for the take profit. And why I always name my inputs starting with input here, it's just more convenient. If you just want to look for an input, you just type input, and now you can see all the inputs. So that's, I think, pretty handy. So input take profit. And here also input take profit. Take profit below 0, or of course take profit greater than 1000. Okay, so this should be it for the input check for these two input variables. And now we go to we compile first of all to check. Okay, so let's go down to the calculate check for breakout function here, where we open up our positions. So now before we open a buy position, we want to calculate the stop loss and take profit for this position. So we write another comment, calculate stop loss and take profit. And now here we declare a variable for the stop loss. So of type double stop loss. And now we calculate our stop loss for this position. So for a buy position, of course, we can use the last tick and bid price. And now for a buy position, of course, the stop loss is below this price. So we do minus, and now we need to get the range span. So range dot high minus range dot low. And now what we need to do is to multiply this by our input. So input stop loss. And also we need to multiply this by 0.01. Okay, so and now what we also want to do is to normalize this price. So we use the normalize double function. And maybe we also make here a bracket just to make things a little bit more clear. And now here we write comma, and we have to specify the digits. We want to normalize the price. So underscore digits, and we close the bracket. Okay, now let's compile and see if we got any errors. Perfect. Now we do the same for the take profit, of course. So here we change the variable, take profit, normalize, and this time, of course, we add our take profit to the current price. So this is our take profit input. Okay, so this should be it for the stop loss and take profit calculation for a buy position. Now, of course, we do the same for the sell position down here. So calculate stop loss and take profit. Stop loss, normalize. This time we use the ask price. We again add now the stop loss to our current price, and for the take profit we subtract. Okay, so this should be it. Now, of course, what we need to do is to use our variables here in our open position call here. So instead of 0, we add the stop loss, and here the next parameter is the take profit. And we do the same here. Okay, let's compile. And now we can check if our stop loss and take profit calculation already works. So let's switch to the strategy tester here. Now let's enter a stop loss and take profit. We got our inputs here. Let's do this 100, or let's say 150, and take profit 200. Now we do a visual test. Press start. Let's see. Okay. Here we have a short breakout, and we can see our stop loss is 150% of the range. And our take profit should be, yeah, right here. It's 200%, so 2 times the range. Okay, so that's working fine for the sell position. Now we need to check for a buy breakout. Here we got a buy breakout, and we also can see the take profit is up here, 200%, and the stop loss 150% of the range. So that's working fine. Okay, so now what we maybe want to add is that we can input 0, for example, for the stop loss, and we can also turn off the take profit. So we just write after this comment here, 0 equals off. And also here for the take profit, 0 means we have no take profit. Okay, so now let's go down again to the check breakout function here. And now we just add a simple if statement. And this time we do it like we check for the input stop loss. If the input stop loss is 0, then we want to set this variable here to 0. And if it's not, then we want to calculate our normal stop loss. Okay, we can copy this, paste it down here. It's the same for the sell position. Now we can do the same for the take profit. So if the take profit is 0, we don't need to calculate a take profit. We just set it to 0. And otherwise, we calculate our take profit. Okay, we again copy this to here. And now we are able, if we compile, we are able to also deactivate the stop loss and take profit if we want, if we enter 0, for example. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to make the close time optional. So if we enter, for example, here -1, we don't have a close time. We only close the positions with the stop loss and the take profit. So again, just right here, -1 equals off. And why we don't use 0 is because 0 for the close time is, of course, a valid input. It's 0 minutes after midnight, so it's midnight. So we use -1 to turn the close time off. Okay, now let's go to the check inputs. So we also need to change something here. So we want to make sure, of course, if we don't have a close time, we need a stop loss. And if we don't have a stop loss active, we need a close time. Otherwise, we would have open positions forever. So we just copy a if statement, let's say after the take profit here. We copy and paste, and here, of course, we check the input range close. If this is below 0 and we don't have a stop loss, and our stop loss is off and our close time is off, then of course the EA should not start. So we also write a message here, maybe close time and stop loss is off. Okay, so now we compile. And now we go down to the onTick function. Here, of course, we don't want to check if we need to close a position if we don't have a close time open, active. So range close needs to be greater or equal to 0. And here the statement is already correct. Okay, so next we go down in the calculate range function. Here, of course, we only want to calculate a close time if the close time is active. So input range close needs to be greater or equal to 0 in order to calculate a range close. Okay, like that, we compile. Okay, let's go down and let's check if we need to change something. So yeah, in the draw object function, of course, we now draw the range high and range low from, like here, from the range end all the way to the range close. And now if we don't have a close time, of course, we want to draw this range low here all the way to the right. So let's do this here in the draw object function. We go to the high object, and here the first one is the solid line, and here the dotted line starts, of course, from the range end time and goes to the close time. So if we don't have a close time, we just do a simple if range close is greater or equal to 0. Then, of course, we set the range close time for our second time point. But otherwise, we would just do like integer max. So it draws the line all the way to the right. Okay, and we do the same here for the low. So range close time, that was not correct. So if the range close time, if we have a close time, we use the close time we have calculated. And otherwise, we just set integer max. So that's a very big number, and it will draw the line all the way to the right. So let's compile, and now let's check this. If we go to the tester here, inputs, and now instead of writing a number here, we just write -1. And we also make sure we have a stop loss active, so we don't get an error. Now we start. And let's see. Okay, we got a error message here. Close time below 0, or we need to change something here in the check inputs section. Of course, here we have our statement. We don't need this anymore, so we can just delete this, compile again. Now let's see. Okay, so we have our range calculated, and now we can see we have our range high, range low, stop loss, take profit, but we have no close time. So now we will just wait until the stop loss will be hit or the take profit. And you can see the lines of the high and the low, they are now all the way to the right. Okay, so this is working fine. Okay, so now what's left is the day of week filter and also the switch for the breakout mode. So maybe we do the day of week filter first. So we will go to our inputs section here, and we add a input for each day of the week. So input, this will be of type Boolean, and input Monday, and we set this to true. And we will just write range on Monday. Okay, now we just copy this 5 times for each day. Input Tuesday. Input Wednesday. Thursday. And Friday. Okay, so let's compile. So now we have a input for each day of the week. And now we go to the on init function here where we check our inputs, and we will add another if statement here down here. And now we will just add up all the inputs. So input Monday plus input Tuesday plus input Wednesday plus Thursday and Friday. Okay, and if this sum here is equal to 0, because Boolean, if you convert a Boolean to integer type, false is 0 and true is 1. So if every input here is set to false, then of course the sum here is 0, and we want to display an error message. So basically every weekday is prohibited by the day of week filter or something like that. So we just write range is something like that. Okay, let's compile. Okay, and now we need to go to the range calculation function, and we will need to shift our times according to our day of week filter. Okay, so let's go down to the calculate range function here. And here, of course, we need to shift our times according to the day of week filter. Now, the day of week filter is always applied to the start time. So if you have a range overnight, only the start time is important for the day of week filter. So here we already have a for loop for our start time calculation. And now here we have, of course, this if statement. And here we need to check if we need to shift the start time to the next day. And of course, what we can do now is just to add our input variables here to check for a shift. So of course we shift on Saturday and Sunday, and now we also want to shift if the day of week is Monday and our input Monday is false. So like this. And now we just need to do this for every day. So copy this, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, now we need to change the inputs here. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay. So this will shift our start time when we are, for example, on Monday, and we don't want to calculate a range of Monday, it will shift it to the next day. And of course, here now for Tuesday, we need to check for day of week 2, day of week 3, 4, and Friday is 5. Okay, so this will shift our start time according to the day of week filter. So for example, we can say we only want a range here on Monday and maybe on Wednesday, and all the other days we don't want a range. So it will shift it from Monday to Wednesday and then again to the next Monday. So let's test this. We compile first of all. Now let's go to the tester. Here we have our inputs now. Let's only do a range on Monday and Wednesday and not on Thursday and Friday. Okay, so let's start. Of course, my tester is in the next, on the other screen. So I start again. Oh, I hate this. Okay, so here's our range. Of course, we don't know the weekday now, but let's just see what happens. So here on this day, we don't calculate because it's probably a Tuesday. This was Monday. Now our range is directly on Wednesday. And after Wednesday, the range is shifted. We can see it here on the far right. Is shifted directly to the next Monday. So that's working fine. Now we go back to the editor. Do we need to change anything else for the day of week filter? I don't think so. So that's it for the day of week filter. We have our check inputs. We have our inputs here. And we can now filter where we want the range to be calculated. And we can just exclude specific days of the week. All right. Okay. So let's code the last component of this EA, which is the breakout mode switch. So we can decide if we want to trade a breakout to the high and to the low, or just one breakout per range. So now let's write another input here. And I would say we just do it here between the range times and the day of week filter. So now we use a enum for this input. So we can write our own enum. We call it just breakout mode enum, maybe. And now the enum has two members basically, and we just call the first one signal, or one trade, one signal, and the other one two signals, like that. And we also write a comment here. So one signal means one breakout the range, and two signals means, of course, maybe we write just high and low breakout. Okay, and now to use this enum as a input, we write input and now the type. And this time our input is of type breakout mode enum. And now we write the name input breakout mode like this. And we also predefine it to one of these two options here. And I would say the default is just one signal for the range. Okay, and we also write a comment, breakout mode. Okay, let's compile and let's see our inputs tab here. And we can see our new input, breakout mode. And now we can select one breakout per range and high and low breakout. And of course, now we need also to code the logic. So we only do one breakout per range if you have one signal selected here. So to do this, we go to the breakout function, our check breakouts here. And here, if we got a high breakout, of course, we set the high breakout flag to true. And now if we only want one breakout, of course, we also set the low breakout flag to true. So we can just copy this. And here we write if. And now our input, our breakout mode is one signal. Then we just also set the low breakout flag to true. And we do the same, of course, or exactly the opposite for the low breakout. So again, we check for the breakout mode. If it's one signal, we also want to set the flag for the high breakout to true. So we don't enter a high breakout if we already have a low breakout. Okay, so let's compile. And of course, if we have both signals set to true, then we will calculate our new range here. We already have this condition here. So this should work already. So let's test it. We select one breakout per range. Maybe we set the day of week filter just to true for every day of the week. And now let's start. Okay, so here's our range. Let's speed this up. And let's see a short breakout. Also a short breakout. Here's a good example. So we have our range calculated here. We got a high breakout right at the top. Bad timing for this trade, but we can see now we also broke through the low of the range and we did not enter a sell position. So that's working like it should. That's perfect. Okay, and now if we switch back to high and low breakout, of course we get a trade for the high and the low breakout. So now the last step is to go through the code because there are some little things missing we need to add. And we also want to clear up the code and want to add comments if needed. So at the end, we will have a nice, clear and structured code. That is very important. Okay, so we start here. I would say this looks fine. Now for the input, for example, we can add group or input group like this, because I don't like it when the inputs here is just a long list. So we can use group here and we can add basically a divider, for example. We use, I don't know, maybe we do it like this. And we just write general inputs. Okay, so for the magic number, lot size, also the stop loss and take profit, I would say these are general inputs. And now the next group, input group, we can write, for example, range inputs. Okay, and maybe we can do another group here for the day of week filter. So input group day of week filter, for example, like this. And now if we compile and we take a look here at the input, we can see general inputs, and you cannot edit these inputs, these group inputs here. So they are just used to structure your inputs here. So I just prefer it to have different sections of inputs. Okay, so now we continue. Our inputs are looking fine. Our global variables, maybe here for the low initial value, we can use the double max predefined variable. And now here in the onInit function, I like it when the onInit function is on one page, so you don't have to scroll. So maybe we copy these if statements here for the check of the user input, and we will create a new function. So right before the calculate range function, we just write bool check inputs. And here we just copy our if statements. So now, of course, we need to return false here for every if statement. Just like this. And of course, in the end, we return true. Okay, so now we have our function, check inputs. And we can go to the on init function, and we can delete these statements here now, and we just need to call our function. So check user inputs, and we call the function. And of course, if this function returns false, we want to return init parameters incorrect. Like this. We compile. Okay, so now we have our function call here, and our magic number looks okay. Here we did a comment in the last part, and now we have, of course, the count open positions function, and we just add this here, count open positions, because we only want to calculate a new range if the inputs have changed and we have no position currently open. So we compile. Okay, and also what we need to do here in the end of the onInit function, we need to draw our objects on the chart. So we just call the draw objects function here, because if we switch the time frame, we delete the objects here in the onDinit function, but of course we want to draw them again on the new time frame. Okay, we compile. The onDinit function looks fine. OnTick function also looks fine. Okay, now we have our check inputs function here. We write a comment, check user inputs. We have our if statements here. We have the range, calculate range function. Now here again, for the default value of the low, we can use double max. That's just a little bit cleaner, I think. Okay, so here everything looks fine. Draw objects. Now our count open positions. We also count all open positions. Write a comment here. Here again. Check for breakouts. Okay. Our close position function. Close all open positions. Okay, and a comment here for the draw object function. Okay, so that's basically it. I spotted a few more things we can edit. So here in the check inputs function, down here, we can delete this here because we previously deleted the condition. And now we can go down to the draw object function, and here we also use for the check for the low object the double max variable, and at the end we will just write refresh chart, and we call the chart redraw function. Okay, now let's compile for the last time. And this is our Breakout EA now for MetaTrader 5. Now, of course, we go to the tester and we can make a final backtest. So I selected the US dollar yen for this test, 5 minutes. I use my own data for this backtest. So we will start in 2012. Open price only mode. And first of all, let's do a visual test. So we just saw a short breakout here, was a nice trade. Now we have a buy breakout, we have a stop loss, our close time. We close the trade in the evening and a new range is calculated here. Now, of course, we can speed this up. We don't need the visual mode. And let's just start this test and see how this backtest is going. And you can see it's a profitable strategy over many years. And you can also play around with the inputs and try different currencies. Of course, if you want good quality backtests, you need good quality data and how to do this. I already made videos about this, about the strategy development process. I will link them up here. So it's a playlist. And in one of the next videos, I will also show you how I use the optimization feature here of the tester to get backtests like this one, stable, good backtests you can use to trade in a live market. Okay, so if you have any questions about the coding stuff, about this EA, you can just write a comment. And if you code this EA and you have trouble to compile it, for example, you can just send the code on Telegram and I can help you to fix it. But of course, first you have to try to resolve it for yourself. Okay, and if you have other questions about automated trading, you can also write a comment. If this video was helpful for you, it would be nice if you just leave a like. And I think that's it for our time range breakout EA for MetaTrader 5. I hope you liked it and I will see you in one of the next videos. Bye.